Begin with just a meditation, and then afterwards I'll describe our morning very briefly and introduce our speakers, if that's okay. Today is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
And I thought I would just read a little bit about that. It's held on January 27th to remember the killing of 6 million Jews, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population, and millions of others. It was designated by the UN General Assembly in 2005, and they chose January 27th, the day that Auschwitz was liberated, as the day that they would commemorate it. Today, the UN Holocaust Memorial Ceremony will be held in the UN General Assembly Hall under the theme Home and Belonging. And I decided that that was what could be more perfect for an immigration spotlight than home and belonging. This highlights the humanity of Holocaust victims and survivors who had their home, sense of belonging, and lives taken from them. The violence of exclusion began with disinformation and hate speech that lent support to injustice and discrimination and marginalization, ending in genocidal killing. The theme reminds us of our responsibility to respond with humanity to the victims of atrocity crimes, to counter hate speech, anti-Semitism, Holocaust distortion and denial and prejudice, and to do all we can to prevent genocide. So as long as we live, they too shall live, because they are part of us for as long as we remember. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so we have some guest speakers today. We have Jessie Valsin. You can see her on your screen. She's an organizer with Espacio Migrante, an organization located in Tijuana that supports migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. Jessie will describe the current situation for Haitian and African migrants at the border, Espacio Migrante's work, and how migrant communities from Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, and Nicaragua have been affected by recent Biden administration border enforcement actions. Kathy Wright is a sister of Loretto. I looked you up today, Kathy. And apparently you possess extreme financial skills. Kathy has worked and lived and fallen in love with Haitian people and recently returned from Haiti. And Greg Mortimer is co-founder of the Colorado Immigrant Justice Fund, which raises legal funds for immigrants who are detained in immigrant detention jails in Colorado and around the country. And Greg, the courage and fortitude detained immigrants provided Greg was the inspiration to launch CIJF, and he will be speaking about it. Cartes de Paz, which is a program at the GEO detention jail here, and GEO visitation in the immigrants they may be seeing at GEO. So that's our lineup for this morning. We do have a 6-minute video. We've gotten permission from Rocky Mountain PBS to show. Jennifer Piper from Coloradans for Immigrant Rights was interviewed by PBS and made this brief 6-minute video about the history of immigration. She honestly captures the whole history in 6 minutes. It's pretty good. So hopefully that will go off without a hitch. And I do want to point out Mary Jean Friel has been our fearless leader of the Latin American Caribbean Committee since Jesus was a young man, and she has finally felt that she can retire. We were not together for many years because of COVID. We finally had a face-to-face, and Mary Jean graciously retired, and Rosa Lazarde graciously took up Mary Jean's mantle. We are just so blessed with such great leadership on our team.
We're so happy.
Thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you, Maureen. I have really big shoes to fill, not to insult you, Mary Jean, about your shoe size, but
They're size 10.
we want to thank Mary Jean. She's just moving over from being the chair. She's not retiring, thank goodness,
Hello.
from the LACC. So we're very
Hello.
grateful to you, Mary Jean. We applaud you for your wonderful leadership these years, and we're really, really thrilled that you will continue with the LACC, of course. And we really work as a team. So as you can see, and you probably have read about the work we do, it's such a collaborative effort, with Maureen introducing, Sally doing the background, Mary Jean, and others from the LACC just helping out with everything. So also, Mary Jean recently had a birthday, so feliz cumpleaños to you.
Thank you.
And New Year, Happy New Year to those who I haven't had the luxury to say Happy New Year. We're still in January, so that's great. So New Year, new day. New LACC. So we will continue with the program. We will show the short video as Maureen mentioned, and then go into our speakers, and we will leave some time afterwards for questions and answers and comments. So let me share. Let me get the shared screen here, so we can get a quick overview of immigration policy by Jennifer Piper. Here we go.
Is a policy you hear a lot about in the media when we're talking about immigration, but I don't think that people have the larger context of how we got to this place. So Title 42 is a public health power that the executive has in times of emergency to close our borders. And I'm going to get to in a second how that became a part of our immigration policy, because it doesn't really connect on the surface of things. My name is Jennifer Piper. I've worked for the American Friends Service Committee, which is a national peace and justice organization. And our office here in Colorado focuses mainly on immigrants and their rights. So asylum is a right that the international community agreed upon in the aftermath of World War II. That right that people have to ask for asylum and then go through a process, they can either do that at the border of the country they're trying to enter, or from here. It's not you legally enter a country in order to, because the policy is designed to protect people fleeing for their life, who have immediate danger for their life in that moment. So asking them to wait somewhere else doesn't make a lot of sense. So that policy also happened after World War II because the United States rejected Jewish folks who were coming from Europe to the US and sent their ships back to Europe. When that happened, the Nazis took control of those boats and most of the people on board were murdered. So that right was established by the United Nations. The US created a whole piece of domestic law around it. And we kind of went forward into the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, we saw administrations, both Democrat and Republican, decide to exclude Central Americans from this policy. We had sponsored coups of those democratically elected governors and persecution in those countries. And when people came fleeing, the United States didn't want them to know about that. So enforcement in the interior first became a big thing, and they targeted specific this flow. This
We need Rebecca.
and the result of death. Attacked is under the second term of Obama. We see Secretary Clinton and President.
We may have lost Rosa in that deal. You know, we may try to show that again at some other point. It's just not working this morning. And it's unfortunate, but Jennifer Piper describes how we got from where we were and where we are today. So that would be something that we would want to hopefully view at some other time. I think she was hoping that Jesse would speak, but I cannot translate or interpret for Jesse. So somebody else will have to do that if Jesse's going to speak Spanish. Good morning, Jesse. You're
Buenos
muted.
días.
If Rosa's not there, I might try to, I'm not terrific though.
Back. I'm back. I'm sorry, my
Oh,
internet
good.
is sketchy. I'm not
Good.
sure why, but
Oh, good.
I'm back.
Good. Jesse, adelante.
Ok, muchas gracias. Bueno, buenos días. Gracias por la oportunidad de estar en el salón con ustedes. Una de las preguntas que me
Let
pasaron
me
es
just,
acerca.
permite. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you all here. One of the questions that was posed to me was,
¿Cuál es la situación actual de los migrantes haitianos y africanos en la frontera?
what is the current situation of the Haitian and African migrants and asylum seekers on the border?
Bueno, yo trabajando en espacio migrante con la comunidad haitiana. Bueno, una de las comunidades que pues más que nos hace desde que entré, que ha acercado mucho espacio, es la comunidad haitiana y también la comunidad africana. Y uno de los retos que han pasado es, por ejemplo, acerca de los temas de refugios en Comar o en INM.
So I work with the Haitian and African communities. It's one of the communities along the border that Espacio Migrante works with. And one of the challenges for these communities is dealing with being refugees.
Bueno, lo más que pasa en Comar con la comunidad africana, ellos no hablan español.
¿Me puedes explicar lo que Comar?
Ok. Comar es la comisión para refugiados, pues ahí parte, es como pues una otra como extensión del INAMI, donde pelea un caso de refugio en México.
Okay. So one of the challenges also is dealing with an agency, a Mexican agency, the Commission for Refugees, and it's also an extension of a DINAMI, another Mexican agency that deals with refugees and refugee status in Mexico.
Y bueno, ahí con la comunidad haitiana y también con la comunidad africana, pues uno de los retos mayores es el idioma, donde los africanos no hablan español y los haitianos tampoco. Entonces, a veces para pelear un caso de refugio tienen que pasar una entrevista. Y mayormente en esas entrevistas lo más que hacemos es tener intérpretes. Bueno, ellos no aceptan intérpretes saliendo de espacio. Por ejemplo, yo a veces me propongo en apoyar en las traducciones, pero no quieren diciendo que pues ahí entra un conflicto de interés donde pues eso va a influir mucho en el momento de dar una entrevista.
Okay, déjame explicar. So one of the main challenges is dealing with language and interpretation. The Africans who arrive at the border do not speak Spanish, and the Haitians also do not speak Spanish. So one of the aspects of dealing with this Mexican Agency for Refugees is going through an interview, and most refugees are requiring interpretation. The agency does not permit Espacio Migrante, the organization where Jesse works, to provide interpreters because it is seen as a conflict of interest. Sí.
Gracias, Rosa. Bueno, esos procesos, cuando entran, bueno, estando en coma, la persona que está encargada, pues es muy grosero con los africanos y también con los haitianos y además nacionalidades o solicitantes de asilo, donde les dicen a veces, pues tienen que venir acompañado de un abogado, que no, eso no es, uno puede tener un abogado si gusta, pero eso no es como primordial en tener uno, ¿no? Entonces les impide. Nosotros lo que hacemos en ese momento en espacio es poner quejas y estamos documentando todo esto para poder exponerlo. Y
Bueno,
bueno,
deja explicar eso.
okay.
So, Comar, the Mexican agency, the representatives are very rude, grosero in Spanish, which is a little bit more than just rude. And especially with the Haitians and the Africans, asylum seekers, they require a lawyer where it's not an official requirement, but they ask for them to be accompanied with a lawyer. And in doing that, they impede this process from going forward. So Espacio Migrante reps are documenting this and filing complaints about their actions.
Y también otra parte que se está pasando con la comunidad africana especialmente, es que ellos en el momento que tienen el refugio aquí en México, entonces pueden hacer la reunificación familiar, eso que implica que pues pueden mandar a traer a sus familiares, hijos, mamá, papá, padres, cuñados, desde su país de origen hasta México. Pero lo que pasa, bueno, sabiendo que es un proceso muy largo, de 2 a 3 años, entonces cuando tienen el refugio, ellos van en INAMI y empiezan el proceso de reunificación o estando en la Comar. Bueno, lo que pasa ahí es que estando en sus países de origen, por ejemplo, Camerún, Burkina Faso, más que de ellos, y Ghana, entonces el consulado de sus países no los reciben. O sea, no reciben a las familias. En cuanto llegan, les dan una visa y les permite venir en México. Entonces, lo que hacen es mandarlo hasta el embajador del consulado de Nigeria, donde ellos tienen que ir. Eso primero, el reto que encuentran ahí es que está muy cara, muy cara el viaje. Y 2, es que pues ahí hay tráficos de humanos, está muy cara la vida y se ponen en peligro. Entonces, más que están enfrentando.
Okay. So one of the other challenges, especially with the African asylum seekers and seekers and refugees, is that the Comad does permit, and Mexico does permit family reunification. So many of the Africans are trying to get their families to Mexico through this system. It's a very long process. It takes 2 to 3 years. And mainly many from Cameroon or Burkina Faso or Ghana begin this process, and they have to go through their own consulates for Mexico in their countries, but they don't have those consulates in these countries. So they need to go to a country like Nigeria to be able to begin the process for family reunification and begin the documentation. This has a lot of problems related to it. One, it's very expensive to travel to Nigeria or within Africa to go and stay in these places to wait for filing of the paperwork. And secondly, there is a lot of human trafficking and dangers to travel for these for filing this paperwork. So this presents a lot of challenges and dangerous situations for our Africans.
Gracias, Rosa. Bueno, en esos momentos lo que pasa también, pues para la legalización de esos documentos, que pues literalmente no se pueden hacer en sus países, sino que pues tienen que ir en algunos consulados. Y bueno, más que eso, no, cuando llegan en los consulados, por ejemplo, en Nigeria, pues les llegan literalmente, ¿no? La visa, diciéndole, pues les falta esto, legalizar, estos trámites, por ejemplo, actas de nacimiento, en temas. Entonces, pues este viaje, pues es perder estos boletos y volver en sus países de origen, legalizar y regresar. Entonces es a un doble carro, ¿no? Pues estar ahí en Nigeria. Hicimos una alianza con una asociación estando en Nigeria, perdón, donde ellos nos dicen que pues nos va a apoyar en lo que es la legalización de los trámites, pero allá es muy cambio, la hora es otra cosa. Tuvimos junta con ellos de las 8 de la mañana, pero en aquel tiempo para ellos son 5 de la tarde. Entonces, pues ahí también, ¿no? Pues nos esforzamos en estar con ellos y también pues ya vamos a empezar a mandarlos los casos y a ver cómo nos están apoyando, ¿no? Para esos tipos de retos que están teniendo la comunidad africana.
And further about this problem with applying for family reunification is the fact that once in Nigeria, the consulates are denying visas to travel, and they are requiring a lot of documentation, birth certificates or certain other documentation needed to process. So it's a a lot of extra challenges. Espacio Migrante has made an alliance with the Nigerian organization to help and provide support on the ground, which has its own issues related to a change of the change of hours, time zones, which becomes very challenging, and having to send information also has been very challenging. Vamos a tomar como unos 2 comentarios para seguir con nosotros.
Claro, de acuerdo.
Oh, es todo. Entonces vamos para el siguiente aportador. ¿O tenías algún otro aporte?
Bueno, pues es acerca de pues falta de acceso y de derecho en Tijuana. Tantos, pues hay discriminaciones para encontrar trabajo, vivienda aún peor, encontrarlos o les hacen pagar la renta muy cara y pues están bien en una escasez tanto de agua, baños, etcétera, y discriminación para ingresar a la escuela, también negando el acceso a algunas, y también acerca de la salud de las mujeres embarazadas. Entonces nosotros tenemos la clínica que está al lado, RHA, pero cuando es una emergencia, por ejemplo, los domingos y les mandan, por ejemplo, los mandamos en el centro de salud, también llegan a un caso donde pues les dicen que literalmente las mujeres haitianas tienen que venir con un intérprete y pues no cuentan con eso. Como Liminami o Coma no tienen intérpretes ya asentados, sino que pues si no hablas como francés o inglés, entonces pues básicamente están rechazando tus solicitudes. Y también acoso y violencia aparte de la policial, pues del perfilamiento racial, tanto con la comunidad negra y también con la comunidad hispanohablante, ¿no? Donde, bueno, les revisan lo que tienen y también de la Guardia Nacional, que es, pues hay mucho aumento de la Guardia Nacional aquí en esos momentos en Tijuana, entonces están en todos lados y pues hay gente teme por sus vidas.
Gracias. She also talked about the challenges at the border there with lack of access to health and, of course, you know, overarching discrimination against Africans and Haitians, charging higher rent, charging extra for water, even attending school, and some schools denying them. The issue with health for women, particularly for pregnant women, when they have to go to the health center or to an ER room, they are asked to have an interpreter present to provide service. There is a center near Espacio Migrante where they are able to take some women because of this discrimination and asking for interpreters. There's also the issue of the police. There's a lot of national guards, national police in Mexico right now who are patrolling and very vigilant, and that is presenting a bit of targeting Africans or people who are not able to speak Spanish. So thank you very much, Jesse. We're going to be moving on to Greg now. Muchísimas gracias, Jesse. Vamos a seguir con Greg. So Greg, thank you for being here.
And Rosa and everyone else, thank you so much for the invitation. It's really an honor to have an opportunity to visit with you all, and I very much appreciate that. So I did put together a brief Google presentation. If you're okay with it, I'd like to just share my screen and walk through that. Is that acceptable to you all? Or? Okay.
Sounds wonderful, Greg. Thank
Sally,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
Sally, if you can let him share screen. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Think did. So so I'll go ahead and do this. And so I just want to confirm before I move forward, can folks see the screen? I never know quite sure if I'm doing it. Okay, great. And also I'll mention this, I have included some information on here that if you're interested in learning more could be helpful. So I'm happy to email the link to this. It's just a website really afterwards in case there's interest. So I'll mention that piece, right? So I'll jump into it. So yes, I'm actually a volunteer with Casa de Paz. In addition to my friends and I started a legal defense fund, as was mentioned earlier, called the Colorado Immigrant Justice Fund. And so all of us, that Colorado Immigrant Justice Fund, the Legal Defense Fund, our vision for that and the need for that kind of rose out of our awareness of that when we were as part of the visitation program with Casa de Paz. And so sometimes when we chat with folks, it starts to become a little bit confusing. It's like, well, this visitation program and this letter writing program, is that CASA? Is that Colorado Immigrant Justice Fund? And so that gets a little bit confusing sometimes, right? So for today, what I thought I would do, and my understanding is about 10 minutes, so I'll try to be time sensitive there, can give you a quick update on the Casa de Paz visitation and letter writing program, which we call Cartas de Paz, which is Spanish for letters of peace. And then also an update about our legal defense fund. So my guess is that some or maybe all of you have some awareness of Casa de Paz. Don't know if that's true or not, but I'll mention a couple things here. The timelines really for our visitation and Cartas de Paz program. So I started volunteering with Casa de Paz in 2017, my friends and I. And then, you know, the reason that Casa de Paz was started was to assist people who are released from detention in Aurora and then have no connections here and need assistance with moving on to meet with family or friends in other parts of the country. And so for the first number of years of Casa de Paz's existence, there really wasn't any sort of formal or official sort of visitation program. But my friends and I started just kind of dabbling in visiting people in detention in 2017. And then in 2018, started to take on a little bit more form and structure, and then we started actively recruiting volunteers to come visit with us. I think we really had kind of a profound understanding, and from Matthew 25, where Jesus asked, I was in prison, and did you visit me? And these detention centers really are immigrant prisons, right? And so, in fact, in a lot of ways, they're worse than prisons that you'd find in our immigrant justice system. And so we started regularly visiting people in detention, and then that kind of grew steadily until March of 2020, when the pandemic came. And at that time, ICE shut down, did not allow anyone to visit people in detention for over 2 years. So in March of 2020, basically over a weekend, we converted our visitation program to, well, a pen pal program, or cartes de paz. We had met a bunch of people in detention. We didn't want to lose touch with them. So we started writing letters and then learning more about the best ways to do that, and adding some structure to that, and recruiting volunteers there. And then finally, in May of last year, ICE finally started allowing visits again. And so we started up that visitation program again, and we're slowly gaining some momentum. Okay, so we are continuing with both of those programs today, right? And so it just kind of by the numbers, in terms of essentially the state of the Cartas de Paz program. So, it's interesting with writing letters, geography is no longer an issue. You don't have to live close enough to Aurora to be able to visit. So over time, it's kind of gradually grown. We've had over 700 volunteers from over 30 states and actually 3 countries write to people in detention centers. We've so far been able to correspond with over 1,200 folks, 45 immigrant detention centers in 16 states around the country. And so it's been really kind of a wonderful way for different people to connect to supporting people in detention. And then also I'm grateful because Casa de Paz has had the budget for us to send, starting last year, $25 money orders to everyone who is referred to us in detention. And so we actually have a whole money order team that responds to requests for money orders. And so far since May of last year, when we started this in earnest, we've been able to send $25 money orders to over 600 immigrants. And that's kind of a modest amount, but in prison where they really have access to nothing, like not even a cup of coffee unless they pay for it, or to make phone calls, or to get letters and stamps. And so that's what can feel like a small gesture to many of us outside of detention, can be something that's incredibly meaningful to our friends that we meet in detention. And I did want to mention just, the majority of people that we do meet in detention are deported. But every once in a while, something happens, like earlier this month, our friend Harriet, who some of you may know, I'm not sure, longtime CASA volunteer, was writing to her friend Laura in Aurora for months. And the day that Laura was released, we're fortunate, she's one of the exceptions. Harriet had a chance to meet her at the Casa de Paz Hospitality House before another volunteer took Laura to the airport, where she flew to be with her family in Chicago. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of sadness we encounter with people in the situations with people in detention, sometimes punctuated by extreme joy like this one, right? And so our visitation program, that really did start to gain a lot of momentum and steam. And by the time that March of 2020 came, we had about 200 regular volunteers who would volunteer at least once a month. And we're doing about 100 visits a week in the detention center. And it was actually in the Aurora Detention Center. It was quite the logistical operation, and we loved it. But wow, it's a bunch of volunteers coordinating this. That's a lot of work, right? So we're trying to figure out how to do that. And now finally, like I mentioned earlier, ICE is allowing us to visit again. One of the challenges is twofold. One is they're only allowing about half the amount of time to visit immigrants in detention as we were allowed previously. So the hours that are most popular for most volunteers, weekday evenings or Saturday or Sunday afternoons, are no longer options for most of the people that we meet in detention. And so the other part is it does take a bit of work to kind of gradually restart the program, right? So where we're at right now is on Saturday mornings, we're to the point where we typically average about 5 to 10 volunteers per Saturday morning. Right now, we're visiting at 11 o'clock. We're allowed 1 hour to visit. And that's been, some really meaningful work. And finally, we're to the point now we've got the names of a number of women in detention The majority of people in the detention center are men, but starting this Sunday, we're going to have a group of women for the first time start visiting other women in detention. And so we're really excited about that to see how that might go. And so if you are interested in learning more about either one of these programs, I've got the links here. And if you get this, I'll send you this presentation. You can just click on that. We do have kind of brief online training for both the letter writing program and visitation. If any of you are interested, or and I think there's a number of people here who have already participated in one or both. But if you want to spread the word a bit, here's where we can learn more. And I do want to mention, here's a friend of ours. This is the first person that we were able to visit after ICE was stopped, allowed us to start visiting again last May. And I visited this young man on Memorial Day weekend, and he's from Ghana, just 18 years old. And so when I visited with him, I asked him if he'd been receiving letters, and he had. And he said that a few months earlier, he'd received a letter from a volunteer named Leah in Atlanta. And he said he had been in detention for 4 months. And that was the first time he smiled since he was in detention, because he realized that somebody outside those prison walls cared about him. So I asked him, what would you prefer, visits or letters? He said, that's a tough choice. But he said, every night he would reread the letters from his pen pal as a reminder to him that somebody outside those walls loves him and cares about him. And then when he wakes up in the morning, he reads those letters again. Fortunately, he was released shortly after this, and now he's gone to be with family in North Dakota, of all places, right? So we'll jump onto this next part. I better check the time.
Yeah, I think if you can just have like 1 more minute, right?
Okay.
Thanks.
Got it. Okay, I've taken too much time on that. We did start this legal defense fund. I'll mention that Colorado Immigrant Justice Fund, we learned the need of this from our visitation program. We've so far been able to provide legal services to roughly 200 immigrants in detention in Colorado, Louisiana, and California, people we met as part of our visitation and letter writing programs. And we've expanded our services just a little bit now, trying to be good citizens here, as all these Venezuelans have been coming to the city. And this is a family from Venezuela that we are funding their asylum case. And the children in here, the two older children have not been in school for 2 years. They're now in Denver, and we've hired an attorney to take on their asylum case. And so also wanted to mention, there is a group of these folks, these different organizations that are coming together to look to provide legal services in a more systematic way to a growing number of migrants coming here from Venezuela, Afghanistan, and Ukraine. And those are just some of the folks in our work. And I think my time is up. So I'll stop sharing, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you for reminding us about the wonderful impact of letter writing. I know some here in this Zoom who are doing that still. And we have Bob Key, who also facilitates that for Loretto and Link members. So thank you so much, Greg. We're going to move on to hear from Kathy Wright, who was recently in Haiti. So I know you're going to bring us some good information about what's happening on the ground. And thank you so much for being here, Kathy.
Thank you. I was hoping she wasn't going to say bringing good news, because there's not a lot of good news in Haiti. Security is an issue everywhere. I was planning to travel to Fondois, which is a small rural village. But even there were changes to enhance security. I was going to be staying with an indigenous religious community at their mother house. They no longer feel free to walk outside of their sort of walled-in compound. Visitors aren't allowed to walk outside, and everyone has to be very careful. When I was in Port-au-Prince, we were transported in bulletproof vehicles, and the driver was always accompanied by a guard. Kidnapping is still a very serious problem. And then across the country, fuel availability has been a real problem. The gangs have taken over the port and really created havoc with the whole economy. Lots of things have been either delayed or halted altogether. That makes work both difficult to find and travel to and from work very dangerous and expensive. The other thing that's happening is there's a significant brain drain. So among those who fear kidnapping and other things, if they have the option to leave the country, many are. Haitians can go to Canada or France, and because they're fluent in French, make a life there, but it means that the country doesn't have what it needs in terms of people to rebuild it. There's a sense among some Haitians that there are powerful business and political people who are sort of allied with the gangs and are, sort of looking the other way and allowing that to happen. Canada has sanctioned some of these leaders, but the United States has not. Banks in Haiti have required some of these sanctioned people to withdraw their deposits and funds because they don't want to be the bank for them. Some of the airlines have refused to transport these people. And the Haitian Judicial Oversight Board has listed at least 30 corrupt judges. So you have this sort of mess where the president was assassinated. You have this prime minister that many people consider to be illegitimate. All of the terms of the legislative branch have expired, so there's no functioning legislative branch. And then you have corrupt judges and some alliance between the gangs and political and business people. So it's a really difficult situation, and I don't know how it gets taken apart and dismantled. It reminds me of like the cartels in Mexico or organized crime in the US. I think some people, even if they're not allied with the gangs, they're paying what in the US used to be called protection money so that they won't be hassled by the gangs. And I think the gangs are now very empowered, very successful, and much more heavily armed, which makes it all the more difficult to try to undo it. There are a lot of people in Haiti who are concerned that if the UN comes in with some sort of presence to try to manage the violence, what they will do is also prop up this prime minister. And people there want him out of office. They want elections. They want their democracy back. And they don't want the UN to inadvertently prop up all of this illegitimate power structure. So it's I find myself not quite sure what I would hope for them. A lot of essential services like hospitals were crippled when the gangs took over the ports and fuel distribution was cut off. Many businesses lost a lot of money. They stopped operating. At this point, the economy is sort of gradually picking up. Schools have reopened and more businesses are operated at much higher costs. There's lots of money being spent on security. One of the groups that I'm closely associated with, called Foncose, has a microfinance bank with branches all across the country. And they have done an amazing job getting cash to all of those branches. So people who do have money, especially in savings account, can access that money. But it's a real ordeal to transport cash and keep the cash and your staff safe while you're doing that. Foncose and other businesses are also looking to install solar panels as much as they can to reduce their need for fuel. And so in the long run, I think that is sort of a point of optimism. San Jose is also starting to do remittances with Western Union. I'm sure most of you know that there are many Haitians here who send remittances back to Haiti. So getting that up and running so that more people can support their friends and family members in Haiti is essential. Right now, they're dealing with an inflation rate of 40%, and for food, that number is even higher. So people are forced to make very, very difficult choices. In the poorest country in the hemisphere, inflation is making it impossible to live almost. Even people who are employed are struggling. And so people who can leave are doing so. And you really understand, you know, why, and the desperation for the poor who never had enough money to live on, and even worse prospects for work and any source of income. It has become really, really a crisis for them. I don't know. A lot of folks really don't even want to talk about it, except in some very, private situations when you ask about what's the solution and what people, might do. But I will say, I mean, I was completely impressed when I flew to Port-au-Prince. I was transported in one of these bulletproof vehicles to the small domestic airline where I was supposed to take a charter flight, and there was a problem, so I couldn't go. And this young man who worked at the counter of this very small chartered airline put me in his office and locked me in there. He said, "It's not safe for you to sit out here and wait for your ride." And I was so grateful for that. I then was taken to a hotel which has a lot of security and armed guards. And on the way back, when I was coming back to the airport, the young man from the hotel said, I need to keep you safe. He waited in a very long line until he could put me right at the front door where the guards were only letting passengers with tickets in. And, I didn't have to walk even 50 feet down the sidewalk to get to the entrance. And I know that means that they know how dangerous it is. And I really appreciated the extra care, but it makes me wonder, how difficult is it for them to come and go to work? Are they having to pay some money just to get to and from work without, being robbed or something?
Right.
It's a very difficult situation, and it makes me sad when people refer to Haiti as a failed state, but I can see why, if you just look at a set of statistics or conditions, you can say that. And I think, Haiti has struggled for, everything it has ever achieved since it achieved independence in 1804. And this is, I think this is worse than it's been in a lot of years. And I hope there's some solution. I wish I had more of a sense of what the solution would be. I think a lot of Haitians would return to Haiti if things improved and there was a way to rebuild their country. I mean, they love their country. They would much rather be there, but it's not safe, especially if you have children. It's not safe if you're a person with a job. At San Jose, they figured out how to have as many people as possible work from home so they don't have to come and go to work. They have these bulletproof vehicles to transport people to and from work in Port-au-Prince, because it's very dangerous in Port-au-Prince. It's safer in some of the outlying areas, but if somebody from an outlying area has to go to a bigger city to buy things, the danger is there. It's like every place is a checkpoint, and gangs can decide to collect tolls or whatever you want to call them for anybody to pass safely. And
Thank you, Kathy. If I can just ask right now if in we have about 8-9 minutes. But thank you so much for that and letting us know about the challenges there. I want to open it up for any comments or questions. If anyone has that, you know, now Zoom has this thing. If you raise your hand for a few seconds, it'll actually put a raise a hand on there. So let me go to Barbara and then to Bob.
Thank you. I work with the peasants in Haiti, and so those are the people I'm hearing from. I want you to know what some of them are doing. There's a young man, we have, I think, 35 university graduates over the past 20 plus years. Almost all are still in Haiti. Some have left, they've had to, some are dead. But one of them, this past Christmas, had a program that we gathered stuff up, and he's an artist as well. And so he teaches them art because he knows art is important for them. And he gave them a meal, which was a huge thing, that they got a whole meal. It was rice and beans, but boy, was that big. So there are individuals like that, as well as like the Little Sisters of St. Therese with whom I work. They have their schools open whenever they can. They use their best judgment to get along in the situation. If they were telling you everything they were doing, you would probably say, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong. Well, it's not. It's what they have to do to stay alive. They're as hungry as the people with whom they work. So there are people getting little things done, and we need to really think about them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Bob, and then Sally and Alicia.
Okay, thank you all for your presentations this morning. Gracias, Jesse. Greg, I have some questions for you. My first question is, who runs the prison in Aurora that you're visiting, that you have visitations to now? Who is that, CCA or GEO or?
It's
Yeah,
Geo.
so, yeah,
GEO?
I
Okay.
subcontracts the running of the prison to Geo.
Okay, so GEO, because in Eloy, it's CCA, we're still not allowed visitations. And when you do the in-person visitations, is it on the phone in the prisons via the glass?
Yeah, so yeah, they take us into it's plexiglass. We sit on opposite sides of plexiglass windows and then pick up the phone and talk that way. Yeah.
Okay. And then I love your program. At some point, I'd love to speak with you if I could on the phone. Okay.
Would be, yeah.
We'll make that happen.
But by the way, folks, I'm also realizing, I think I misunderstood. You all have a really deep understanding of all this immigration stuff. So I hope that my presentation didn't sound patronizing. I apologize. I didn't realize how fluent you are around immigration. I apologize.
No, thank you, Greg. Don't even say that, because I think all information is valuable. We don't know. We haven't really heard about the jails, the prisons in Colorado, and you know, it's really good to have this information. And you know what? It allows for connection. And that's one thing that, you know, our partners end up connecting with, which is really important as well. So thank you, Bob. And why don't you write each other's email in the chat? Sally?
Thanks, Rosa. And thanks to all of our speakers. I echo our gratitude for you being with us this morning. And Kathy, I just want to ask you, I know you said several times you don't know what a solution would be or would look like to the situation in Haiti, and I certainly understand that, but are you able, or were you able to identify any places where Loretto could help, where some Loretto small funds could help? If so, I think the LACC would be anxious to talk with you about that.
Well, one of the things that's exciting is that what is sort of the parallel to the LCWR in Haiti that had sort of ceased to function at any real level, has received a $1.6 million grant from the Hilton Foundation to try to put that organization back together and empower some of the indigenous women's religious communities to strengthen their programs and create some activities that would serve the poor and provide revenue, for the program, so that instead of it being an endless charity, that it would really be creating jobs and then creating some revenues for the community. I was asked to train some of these women who have to do the record keeping because they've not had grants before, and it didn't feel safe for me to go to Haiti to try to do that work. So I got some money from Loretto, and so the current plan is to bring some of these Haitian women religious to Miami to do some training. And so we're going to try to work out all the details to bring them to Miami to do some training, maybe provide them with software if they have access to computers and internet. That's a big question. And probably one of the greatest things the Latin American Caribbean Committee could do is if you know anybody who's Haitian, who's fluent in Haitian Creole, I would love to have an interpreter there to help with the process.
Okay.
I mean, I'd have some that I know, but if you know of anybody, I'd also love to be able
Okay.
to have a couple of people who could help and really, just navigate the whole time that they're there in Miami.
So they would you would set something up and they would go to Miami to be with
Right.
you.
Right. I'm hoping to contact some religious communities down there and see if one of them would be willing to host. I mean, we're talking about 7 people probably with an interpreter, because it would be me and maybe 5 people or 6 people from religious communities and an interpreter. And I'm hoping a religious community would host us. And so
Excellent.
I'm working now to
Right.
find out what the likelihood is of visas and a possible date that would work. So
That's so great, Kathy. Thank you for that
Thank
work.
you. That's wonderful, really, thank you. So if you all will indulge us for a couple minutes, we have Alicia and then Barbara again. Alicia.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you. And Kathy, I'm so glad that you're down there and doing that with the Haitians. I will not forget the time that some of the Haitians were trying to cross the border and were rounded up so inhumanely by the Texas Rangers on horseback. But that was not what I wanted to talk about. I really wanted to address some comments to Greg. Greg, when I was in Denver about 10 years ago, I worked with the American Friends. They have a group called CFIR, Colorado for Immigrant Rights, and maybe you work with them. I know Maureen, who's on Zoom, also belonged to that group, but we did a little bit of visiting and some classes on ESL, which were difficult because most of the detainees were not there a very long time, thank God. But that shelter there in Aurora was just beginning. So I'm really pleased that it has expanded so much with letter writing and more visits. One of the reasons we had to stop with the visits was that they had asked some of us who were doing the visits to sign a paper that said we were part of the GEO team. And none of us wanted to sign that because we are not part of that for-profit detention center. So unfortunately that did stop, but we did do a lot of protesting out in front of the detention center. And then when they moved us out of there, we were out in the street. I don't remember the name of the street, but it was very close to that center that helped a lot of the visitors there. So anyway, I congratulate you for doing that. And thank you all for the work that you are doing. And muchas gracias, Jessie, por su trabajo. ¿Dónde aprendió su español?
Aquí en México.
Ah, bueno, muchas gracias. Bueno.
También quiero que tengas unos comentarios al final, después de Bárbara, quizás reaccionando a la representación de Kathy, si puedes. So we'll go to Barbara and then we'll have Jessie just say some final remarks, and Kathy and Greg briefly. Barbara?
Thank you. Just very quickly, Loretto has been doing things for all during the 20+ years I've been going. And most of them have the money is there, and you make the Haitians make the complete decision how and when and where to use those funds. That is a huge gift that Loretto has given them. I know, Kathy, we need to get better at learning how to do the grants and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, when a sister is kidnapped, you don't have time for that. But Loretto has done things like money for trees, security, never guns, might be rocks, might be machetes a little bit, but mainly just people. Also building walls. Loretto helped build a wall at the mother house. Unfortunately, a month after it was finished, the earthquake took most of it away, but you know, we're building it up again. They got little crosses for the sisters to wear. They've given scholarships both to the young sisters, the jeunes sœurs, and also to young people in Haiti. And just a month ago, I heard out of the blue from Barbara Roach saying, we have money left, and I can't remember which group she's with. Could Haiti use $3,000? Oh God, that money is in Haiti. It's getting food. I just got a WhatsApp last week. You know, we have no food at the mother house for the neighbors and for the sisters and the people there. So that $3,000 is going to somehow get some money there. So Loretto is doing things, and it very much is led by the Haitians, what it is they really, really need. So
Thank you so
you
much,
can be
Barbara.
very proud of Loretto.
Great. Thank you so much. So I want to bring in Jessie, Kathy, and Greg for final words, and then I'll hand back to Maureen for closing. Jessie?
Mandé, Rosa. No escuché
Sí.
la pregunta.
Nomás unas reacciones quizás a la presentación de Kathy o unas últimas palabras.
Bueno, no entendí mucho de la parte de inglés, pero como la presentación era más acerca del voluntario estando en cárcel en los Estados Unidos, no sé si ellos, por ejemplo, Greg, si trabaja en todos Estados Unidos o en un estado en específico donde apoyan al voluntario. Y de Bárbara, trabajo más con la comunidad haitiana estando en Miami. Pues como no estuve tanto como las, porque no sé mucho de inglés, pero ella también ha sido algunos viajes hacia Haití, pues para poder verlo el contexto de tanta migración. Como que al final escuché que no sé, que pues sí, a los haitianos les gusta mucho su país, pero la violencia no nos permite estar, ¿no? Entonces, pues me encantaría saber un poco. Y también, bueno, hoy no hablé de CBP1, pero creo que es un tema ahora que está muy presente y que haitianos, venezolanos, cubanos y nicaragüenses están usando. Pues no sé si me permite unos minutos para hablar de este proceso.
Sí, deje nomás decir esto. So Jessie actually had some questions for Greg, wanting to know specifically where you worked. Él trabaja en Colorado, But, you know, I think it might be good to connect you two as well as partners. And Jesse also mentioned that with regard to what Barbara had shared and Kathy, that she also has worked with some Haitians in Miami. So I think it might be worthwhile to connect. Her English is not, I was very limited because actually my Zoom did not permit me to write the interpretation for Jesse. The chat was disabled on my side. So apologies. Perdón, Jesse, que no te pude traducir. No funcionó mi chat y te mandé WhatsApp, pero no contestaste. And so she just wanted to mention very quickly about this this new Biden approach, which I was going to say at the end of the last video, you know, this new approach, which is featuring, you know, a legal pathway for the U.S. for specific groups, as Jesse mentioned, from Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. But this is combined with tighter controls at the border and new penalties for crossing illegally. Biden is enacting this pathway for asylum seekers, 30,000 a month from these 4 countries. And Jesse wanted to just mention a couple of points around this. Okay, Jesse, sobre estos 4 países.
Sí, bueno, los de CBP-1, Biden anunció esto en el mes de enero, pero lo que dice, pues esta aplicación es para entre 4 comunidades, de hecho, que son bajo el título 42, que son haitianos que recién anexaron ahí, venezolanos, nicaragüenses y cubanos. Es que, pues, en aquel tiempo, antes de que emitieron los haitianos en este programa, les retornaban hacia Haití, no les retornaban en México. Entonces apenas lo están poniendo, es decir, que pues en el momento que van a hacer retorno, les van a retornar aquí en México, no en Haití, en sus países de origen. Es una plataforma que pues como le anunció Biden, que permite a 30 miles de personas por mes. Entonces eso se puede hacer desde su país de origen, solicitarlo o también pues estando aquí en la frontera. Entonces lo que vemos es que es una aplicación que tiene muchas dificultades porque la comunidad haitiana no hablamos inglés y tampoco el español. Entonces en esos momentos la aplicación, la mayor parte está en inglés y bien pocos en español. Y también dan cita muy temprano. Por ejemplo, aquí en Tijuana, desde las 6 de la mañana se tienen que empezar a buscar citas. Entonces eso complica. Y también eso que sí supo CBP al momento de hacerlo, pues en la plataforma no reconocen a las personas de la comunidad negra, no aceptan sus caras. Entonces, pues CBP sí supo de esto, pero todavía se sigue usando. Muchos, por ejemplo, les están negando el acceso porque la aplicación no es apto. Y segundo, en esta aplicación, pues nada más es para teléfonos y no es para laptop o escritorio. Entonces, pues una persona a fuerza tiene que tener un teléfono que no sea Amway, que sea pues desde Samsung hasta iPhone, porque no aceptan los demás teléfonos.
Okay, gracias. So she's speaking about this new program that Biden has announced, basically saying that this application for these communities from these 4 countries, which includes Haitians, was posed to this Title 42. But now, before they would have to return back to Haiti, but now under this, they are returning them back to Mexico. And so the applications have to be from their country or from being in Mexico at the border. There's some problems and complications, challenges for them. The applications are in English and Spanish and not in French, so it makes it problematic for the Haitians. Also, when requesting appointments, the appointments start at 6 a.m. And that makes it, you know, difficult for people. There's also, the applications are allowed on certain phones only, not on laptops or on computers, which also complicates the problem. And she was saying that it also does not recognize Black people. I'm not really sure how this, what it means. Let me just ask her, Jessie. Tú dijiste que no reconoce a gente negra. El programa como en la cosa facial o en la aplicación, no entiendo.
En la cuestión facial y pues acerca del color, ¿no? De que pues está nada más por una comunidad, no está incluyendo a todos, nada más a la comunidad, bueno, que
Ok.
tiene, es que no reconocen a tipo de piel oscuro, nada más, de otro
O sea,
color.
para chequear en la aplicación.
Sí, es como es biométrico,
Ok,
ellos tienen que escanear tu
Oh.
cara, entonces a los colores
And,
oscuros.
interesting. So the
Yeah.
application uses biometrics, and it
Mm.
does not recognize Black faces or like darker, you know, Black features. So it makes it very complicated. Muy interesante. Gracias. Thank you so much, Jessie. So let's go to Greg. Thank you all for staying on. I know that we added a bit to the program. So thank you, Greg, and final remarks, and Kathy as well.
Okay, if I can just clarify, I think this is the case, but, and I apologize that I don't know, that Laredo is part of is a Catholic order, is that correct? Or, okay, and the reason I ask is, a friend of mine at work is a very devout Catholic, and we talked, she's very interested in the work that we're doing, and she says, Greg, you should just become a Catholic. And so after getting to hang out with all and hearing all the wonderful stuff you're doing, it further, I think, makes her case. So again, seriously, thank you so much for even letting me hang out with you. And I think you all have been very involved in this work at much more profound levels than I for a long time. And it's so refreshing to sit with you and hear what you're doing, and just thank you for the opportunity to connect. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm glad that Kathy follows you so she can remark on that comment. Do we recruit, Kathy? Unmute.
Thank you. You have to be careful, Greg, because in some Catholic circles, we're not considered Catholic enough. So you might need to know that. And but I just want to say, I think, like, to reiterate what Barbara said, I think it's really important that we try to take our cues from the Haitians and what they think is the solution to problems. I mean, they are a very proud country. They were the first free Black country, you know, and they need to navigate this. It's a horrible set of circumstances, but we need to look to them and not try to prop up more governments the way the United States has a tendency to do, and not often in the interest of the vast majority of the population of that country. And I'm going to send an email if you have any prisons in Florida where I could be a pen pal and maybe a visitor. I'd love to do that.
Great, thank you so much, Kathy. And so what can we do? I just want to highlight a couple things. I mean, we could sign up to support the letter writing, so you can get in touch with Greg or with Bob Key. We can keep looking out for making donations to these organizations and supporting. Of course, LACC is going to be looking into the grants, and you can keep in touch with us. Our next immigration spotlight will be in April. It's the last Friday in April, the 27th, I believe. So please keep in touch and bring up any issues and sign up for our listservs. So I'm going to hand back to Maureen to close. Thank you all for being here.
Actually, I have nothing more to say. I just want to express my gratitude. Honestly, Greg, if everyone in the world was like you, there would be no problems. All of you, Jesse and Kathy. So thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you, Mary Jean, for really keeping us in touch with our partners. Nobody could do this work if we didn't have partners all over the place, and we really appreciate all of that. I'm sorry for some of the connection problems. That's just the way life is sometimes, but we all connect in spirit and in hope. So thank you for joining us today.
Gracias, Jesse.
Gracias.